much time at the end for questions and for us to have a discussion or anything else. So just, if you may have read, time banking is really about having a network of people that are trading services without the use of money, so using time as the basis of exchange instead, so that an hour of your time is worth an hour of my time, and we're each doing work in this circular fashion. And so I have a couple video clips that I'd like to show. They're very short, one's a little news clip, and it'll help explain it a little bit. So it'll be our Sunday morning or Saturday morning cartoons.
Well, with more than 600,000 Americans looking for jobs, many people are now rethinking how they define work. Instead of working for money, a national network of people are helping each other by sharing their time and talent. Here's ABC's Jeremy Hubbard with more on how time banks are helping communities get back to work.
Yeah, they are the correct direction.
Scraping paint, fixing the sink, washing windows. Costly project 61-year-old Judy Capel can no longer afford.
Right now, they just absolutely would not get repaired. I mean, I just cannot afford that.
She's retired from Citibank and lost $800,000 of her savings when the company's stock value took a nosedive. Is this how you envisioned your retirement?
No, it is not. I had money that was going to serve us the other half of my retirement. That money basically is gone.
So how will she foot the handyman's bill? Well, she is going to the bank, the time bank.
The basic premise of the time bank is that everyone has something of value to offer, and generally everyone has something in return that they may need and want.
It works like this. No bank branch, no tellers, no cash. Instead, people swap skills. Say you need an hour's worth of help painting your fence? No problem. Time bank organizers will match you with someone who knows how. In return, you spend an hour helping someone else, and you can build up your account balance with time dollars. So the more help you give, the more you get when you need it. It is definitely not your typical bank transaction. Now, in this case, Judy is making a withdrawal by having these repairs done to her apartment. That means now she has to make a deposit.
Which one do you want to do? This one?
But instead of paying her repairman, Judy pays it forward.
7 o'clock? Yes!
By giving free math lessons to 8-year-old Carlito, tutoring his mother Julia couldn't afford otherwise.
It helps my mom a lot because she could save money if we need it.
When you know that you can count on someone and they do it for free and they do it for real and they do it because they are really interested in helping, it's a lot. You get that love, that kindness.
It is a circle of giving, and with millions of Americans now counting every penny, this idea is taking off. About 60 time banks have popped up across the country, where some 11,000 people are now paying with their time instead of their money. So in a sense, it's paying it forward.
Yeah, I think it's a form of paying it forward. You receive something, you provide something, you receive something, you provide something. So it is a form of paying it forward.
Paying it forward to a bank built on goodwill that will never need a bailout. For Good Morning America, Jeremy Hubbard, ABC News, New York.
So that gives you some kind of basic idea. And then I just want to show you one more from the UK, and this is the bank there, and then it gets into a little bit more of different possibilities and what
to eke out the potential in people and see what they can offer to the community and each other.
You give some hours and then you get things back according to what you need.
And I think it's brilliant because an hour of someone's time is equal to an hour of someone else's time, whatever they're doing.
Instead of having money exchange hands or gifts.
They're making time into currency, basically.
I think that's basically all it is, to help people.
And if you do something for somebody, it helps to get that bond going. People get together, but they both gain. It's a two-way thing. So it's encouraging good neighbours, as we used to do years ago.
A time bank is a means to exchange time and skills in your local area.
Erin walked into this office one day and said, "I've got some time to spare, can I do some volunteering?" The first thing I did was jump on her for the escort for school because the children would respond to her very well.
Right, gang, now we're ready to get these kids, let's go. being the lollipop lady, but walking with the kids the whole way from school to the centre. There were usually 2 of us trying to keep them in pairs to bring them back safely across the road and then back here. It just, I suppose, put me in a place where I could find out more what was happening. And I spoke to Anne, and she let me know about the things that are happening in Time Bank and just how it works.
Some people don't know they've got skills. Some people say things like, oh, I don't know what I could offer. All these things are skills. It's up to the broker to really know who they've got in their bank, so you can eke out the potential in people and see what they can offer to the community and each other.
For every hour you spend helping someone in a time bank, you receive 1 time credit. Erin earned time credits doing the walking bus and spent those credits in a poetry workshop.
Anywhere else you probably would be charged something for being in a class which is being led by a published poet.
What you have here sometimes are natural assonance.
And we pay Tessa with our time credits. And then to gain credits, again, I will go out with the group and we'll go and read poems.
A cocktail of nations in that sleepless tin pot.
I'm probably the youngest person there, and it goes right up to like 80s or something, which is good because it means it's inclusive to lots of people.
Be thankful I'm geriatric, with legs that have lost their spring. Otherwise, I think, my friends, you would have a different song to sing. Especially that nice fat blackbird so busily filling his tongue. If I were younger, he'd be filling mine. Ooh, wouldn't that be fun?
Through her time bank activities and meeting Anne, Erin had found out about a full-time job.
A job opportunity came vacant in the community centre, and she applied for it along with others. When we saw her time bank form, she was more than qualified.
And then we can get your details on this. My job is to look after the learners who come here. You meet people who are probably your neighbours, and just seeing where they are at, and that you can give them something, you can help them in some way and just encourage them in their learning.
Glass bottles and cans.
Time banking is a great way to reward valuable work that often goes unnoticed, such as the recycle pick organised by Kirsty.
Okay, yes. Your penalty? Yeah. Oh, God.
66. Okay, wow, 16.86.
Okay. Cool down. Write it down.
330.
Write it down. Excellent.
I should come in.
Thank
Good
you
luck
for
with the
organising it,
bottles.
Kirsty.
Time banks can help provide local support for the more vulnerable in society.
Somebody with obsessive compulsive disorder, for example, what this person wanted was somebody to offload to.
Basically, I felt like I was really, really struggling. At times I felt completely kind of out of my depth.
And then you remember, I've got a listener that's patient who genuinely wants to sit and help that person.
Yes, no, absolutely.
It's trying to listen to people and trying to understand needs more than sort of the surface level of things.
The relationship we've built up over time, and I feel I can gain a better perspective on where I've been and kind of where I'm going.
It simplifies things and can put more meaning into your work if you know that what you're doing is for the person next door. I think it's slightly changed my attitude towards what work is and what work can be.
Time banking is about give and take, but you don't have to earn time credits before you can spend them. As Claire found out when she visited a cycle maintenance workshop.
That's the point.
I've got a couple of bikes and I don't really know how to maintain them.
If it's rubbing, you soon hear it, but your wheels nice and straight.
I'd always just take it to a bike shop and pay for somebody to do it, so now I might get Allen keys and start doing a bit myself.
The time bank's very needs-led, you know, so it's you telling us what you need and you telling us what you enjoy doing.
Time banks are open to everyone and it's completely free to join. A time bank can provide the perfect link to connect with the skills available in local organisations.
I currently do cycle training to young people around Islington as a cycling officer.
I want to be able to cycle to work.
Yep.
I don't know the route of how to do it yet.
But what I'm thinking is regarding the time bank is I'd take you out to the route that you want to go on. We start at the beginning, just work through the whole route.
Quite far away from the car, actually.
You are quite far away, but you've got to protect yourself, so...
Practice a few different manoeuvres that I wouldn't have been confident in trying before, sort of coming out into the middle of the road and turning right, for instance.
The position we want to be in for a right turn is pretty much towards the central line, exactly. So, check it behind as you go. Give a signal, and then just before you turn, one last look over your shoulder, call it a lifesaver look. There's a few different avenues it could go. There's myself being able to train people within the time bank. Also maybe Claire could be a cycling buddy to someone, then she could even earn her own credits that way.
I've filled in the application and so I can give some time as well. It's quite difficult to think of what time you want to receive back from someone else. You would never have thought of this. It just came out of the bike workshop and it's been really, really ideal.
Time banks can be located anywhere, and its possibilities are only limited by our imaginations. As head teacher Wendy discovered with the introduction of an innovative approach to time banking.
With the buddy bench, it's formalised the situation where there's always a space where you can be looked after and there's always someone to do it.
Buddy bench is a place where young children, if they're upset or alone, can go to. It's a bench where people can go if something's happened in the playground or somebody said something to them.
It helps in resolving any of the conflicts that they might have in the playground.
Buddy bench helpers normally have a red band on that goes across them. So then if anybody sits on the bench, they go to them and they ask them, what's wrong, what can we do to help?
Hey son, what's the matter? Charlotte, you don't want to play with me. Let me just go find Charlotte. Come here, Charlotte. I was having water and then she came and pushed me. Did you push me first? I pushed her back. Is this true, Seven? But did you push her? Who did it first? Charlotte.
If someone was upset over something, the buddy bench would try and do a peace path, which is they get the person that's been upsetting the other person and they ask what they want, and then the person repeats that and say what they want, and the other person repeats that, and then so on until they find a good solution.
Okay, why don't we do the peace path, okay? How are you feeling, Seven? How about you, Charlotte? So you're both feeling upset, and what would you two like as the solution? Charlotte? Maybe reach out and shake hands. Maybe reach out and shake hands. Then what are you waiting for? Shake hands. Now, go and play.
There's less issues in the playground now for definite. If you do a specific amount of time, then like at the end of the term or something, you go on a trip.
The children who've been in the buddy bench, their time is sort of banked into a pool, and so they then get a trip out.
We've been on hikes, bowling. Like Miss Meredith right now, she's saving up so we can all go horse riding.
It just helps to develop an all-round individual, the kind of people that we want our children to grow up to be. Helpful, supportive, yeah, there for each other.
It's just old-fashioned community spirit, helping your neighbour, helping each other. But you also gain from it. You gain experience. You gain, you gain friendships, and with the view to possibly having a job, having a future, doing things that you never thought you would do, trying things out for the first time, getting an opportunity to experiment where your skills lie, because that's a hard thing to do. If you want to come and genuinely help in the community, help each other, the ideal way to do it is in a time bank.
Basics, and a little bit of what's possible. There's a few slides I'll probably just blow through. I'll pass these around too. These are kind of sample little sheets that list a lot of more maybe popular work. As the one woman said in there, there's a lot of people who say, well, I don't really have skills, I don't know, I can't do anything. But if you can read a book to a kid, or you can, home, or go on a bike, or listen to someone, it's really wide open. It's up to you, kind of what, and other people as well. So just keep, so this is just kind of shows the circular way too, and this way in which, it's a multiplier effect. You can weave people together, and so, it's not just trading one-on-one, but, you have these overlapping circles. And then that's the sheet that's passing around, because you can't really see any of the details on there, so keep going. And then, again, another list of some common services based on other time banks. These are their more popular things that people will do. And if you notice, a lot of these we could all use, and a lot of times we would never pay for it because we don't have the money, or it's expensive, or things like that. But if you're able to just work a couple hours and earn that, the likelihood that you provide that for yourself, or you'd be able to receive that service is much greater. And then so, just as the basic steps, as if you initially came in, it's pretty straightforward. You would just come in, kind of fill out some kind of application and list what skills you have, maybe go over with someone, do somewhat of an intake, and maybe review what they have in the system. Certain time banks are set up differently, so some use a software and some don't, and some use a combination of, they'll have a staff person there who only keeps a paper log or does both, so that if someone doesn't have a computer, they can phone in and say, you tell me what's in the system, who's listed. But a lot of the ones nowadays use computer systems, so people can remotely log in from their home or wherever and see, okay, what services are available, or do I have any requests pending, something like that. So it can be really easily managed and with very low administrative overhead. And then, again, depending on the bank, you usually have someone there who can match folks up for their different requests or services, or people can contact each other directly, so it just depends how you want to set it up. And then, again, time banks work differently. You can set up yours however you want. Usually people set a cap on how many hours you can go towards a credit or a deficit. Come on in. There may be some extra chairs here. There you go. I know it's a little out of the way. Okay, so you could sometimes people will intentionally save for a big item they want, and let's just take that. And so as long as you're intending to keep this reserve, but generally the idea is to keep people spending it, so then it gets used up in turn, and you have this equal balance of things. But you can generally save for big things. And like the video said, you could also go and keep somewhat of a deficit up to a certain point until you're able to give in return. So it's very flexible like that. And then, you know, like the one in the video, many of them are free. Sometimes people will write grants to provide a wage or have someone work as an administrative staff person. Other times it'll all be, you know, you could have a staff person who works on time credits, or you could just find some other way, get a grant to provide the funding to maybe cover the initial costs and startups and things like that. So some of what you saw in the UK video was the fact that there are different models. So the very most basic one that a lot of the time banks are just a neighborhood model. So it works, anyone can join within a certain geographic boundary, and so it's open to any individuals within a certain city or neighborhood, something like that. And then with the social service and village model, there actually is a village model in San Diego in the community of Tierra Santa. And so these are where there's maybe already a social service agency that, you know, provides some kind of, you know, maybe it could be governmental or non-governmental, provides some kind of, like, you know, maybe food pantry service. The village model refers to usually like elderly communities or communities who are trying to age in place and live as independent a life as they can, as long as they can. And so in that type of model, it would just be incorporated into their services, and to try to get the people who are being provided for involved in that and participating in that. So it's a way to engage people in the outcomes so they're not just receiving a service from this agency, but then they also have to give back. They're also a part of receiving those services, and so it's a way to create more community. Similarly, with the internal organization model, a lot of, you saw with the Buddy Bench, that the school had kind of incorporated this way to get children to give back. There's also a youth court in DC that's incorporated this, where they have past juvenile offenders actually staff this youth court, and they will have them be the arbitrators and judges. They also sentence people to do community service, so people who come up in front of that juvenile youth court will have to do this community service, and they've had tremendous success with this model. They've had, you know, people who are youth offenders go on to Princeton, or, you know, just become so involved in their community, really find productive avenues and things that they love doing and go off to real positive futures. You know, you've had them inside of prisons where people can earn, you know, so they're not just working for way below minimum wage jobs where they can purchase things in their commissary, but that they can earn these time credits and then trade them outside of the prison to their family, or to earn things for people who they care about outside of the prison as well. The expanded service model, maybe if you go to the next slide, I can talk about that a little bit better. And I know you can't see all of the smaller language, but with the expanded service model, it incorporates organizations. So in a lot of cases, a lot of the time banks will allow organizations to be members, things like arts organizations, local businesses, nonprofits, things like that, who also have these social missions or could incorporate that. So then it's not only individuals trading services, but you could work for a certain business or a local organization, or maybe like a health clinic, as it's been done in other places, and you could use your time credits to receive health care from an organization. So it doesn't limit it to just individuals. And then the hybrid model is, you know, any combination of these, and maybe you want to go on to the next slide. So one of the hybrid models is Ithaca, New York, and they combine their time bank with a local currency program. And so there you had this local currency that was pegged to a certain dollar amount. So you could earn through an hour of labor, 1 Ithaca hour, $1 of their local currency, and you could also then spend that for goods. So it wasn't just a time bank that was limited to services, which if you're doing the time bank and it's limited to services, it's not counted as income, which has certain benefits. Say if you're on, if you belong to social service programs, or you're on a limited income and you can't have an income above a certain amount, or you just don't want to have the hassle of declaring income with the IRS through whatever you'd be receiving in terms of all of these services. But with that, it is counted as income, but it was something that they wanted so that they could bring in local businesses and have this other local currency combined with that. And then a lot of times, people will say, oh, time banking, it's like bartering. It is like it. It's a little bit different in the sense that, you have this, it's not a direct trade or maybe a three-way trade. You are just putting in your time credit, and then you can select from any number, and it doesn't have to be a simultaneous, at the same moment kind of trade, and you don't have to worry about, well, my craft is making benches and I don't want 300 tomatoes, in a trade for that. You can put in your time, you can provide your service, and then, get it back in different denominations or however you want. So it's a little easier to manage in a bigger community if you're doing it that way. So go ahead and go to the next. So then as the background, right, so why was this developed? This guy, Edgar Kahn, is kind of the architect of what time banks being developed, and you guys can borrow these with Spanish and English if you want, just see me afterwards. But our current economy, we only value and define work as something that's paid, right? So it would be as if you had this map, and you're trying to get somewhere, and you tear off 2/3 of the map, and you're trying to, it's like all of this resource, these assets that you're not currently using. And so that's what this iceberg model is trying to show, that you have, in our current economy, the way that we value things and what's considered work, is only something that's paid, and how, in our economy, everything is based on price, and therefore it's based on scarcity, and so we value in a higher sense the things that are more scarce, which means that we don't value the things that are common, the things that everyone can provide, or certain social things. So that means we don't value caring labor, we don't value birthing labor, we don't value grieving labor, or mothering, cooking labor, or this general social service activism labor. So that's they don't count towards GDP. So it only it's only the stuff that builds our communities, that holds people accountable, that makes democracy work, that all this stuff. But it's not too much. So the idea was, how do we get to value, to reward, to compensate the things that are socially productive, that don't necessarily generate surplus value, or that can't produce a profit, but that intrinsically to us are so valuable. So these are kind of the main tenets that you'll see that time banking is saying. This is what we value. We value people as assets, and the things that people can produce, and trying to recognize that everyone has something to contribute, everyone has something to give, and no matter who you are. And the key is that we need to start producing the social enterprises, the tools, the systems to recognize and reward that, and to show that, reflect that. Redefining work, I kind of just spoke to that, but trying to have that perspective shift, that where we're thinking now, oh yeah, so tutoring kids, maybe that's something that we should reward and consider work, or the showing someone a bike route, and doing this kind of stuff. Not waiting for someone else to come in and give us a job or pay for that or fund that, or not leaving it up to government necessarily, but that we can start creating these systems that will create these outcomes and futures. And then so reciprocity gets into that too, and getting away from maybe a little bit of volunteer and a charity model towards you know, if we're trying to achieve something, we're not saying like, well, you know, we're going to show you the way, we're going to help you. It's, no, let's together, you know, create this, and how much stronger that is when you get the buy-in from people and you enlist everyone in moving something forward, and, you know, and working on the same goals of going forward with that. Social networks, you know, this is definitely proven to build social relationships and weave communities together and get people together in the sense of, you know, you're not only, you know, performing your skill for someone, but you're sitting there and oftentimes people will help, you know, paint their own house while you're doing it, or you'll strike up these conversations. And especially in a neighborhood model where you're living close to these people, it's a very easy way, it's a convenient way and vehicle to, you know, get to know your neighbors and build those bonds with people and find out stuff about people that you never knew, and it just provides that very seamlessly. And then obviously, like, respect. The more you get to know people, you know, you're maybe being paired up with people, you're providing services with people who you would never ordinarily maybe strike a conversation with or run into or have any other occasion, and so it's bridging cultural divides, and it provides certainly opportunities to address those kinds of differences and create more understanding throughout, and holding people accountable and all sorts of things. So yeah, I just wanted to also list out some of the individual benefits, and I think we covered a little bit of this already, in terms of, you know, what time banking does, and there's a lot that, you know, we're providing incentives and motivation to do these things that a lot of us do already. You know, I know a lot of people in this room, and, you know, a lot of us are activists and give a lot of our time already, and wouldn't it be great to, you know, be enriched for that? You know, imagine if, you know, your activism activities could be your full-time job, or at least, you know, supplement a lot of that. You know, to implement systems like that, make it a lot easier on us, and make it a lot easier to do the work that we want to be doing and that we love. You know, it's just always the struggle for that. Okay. So, you know, this is a food justice conference, right? So how does this relate to food and farming and the food community? Well, you know, if you all of a sudden you have this time bank and you have gardening skills listed, or you can offer something like that, well, that means we're doing more gardening, we're doing more growing of food, we're doing more producing of food, we're doing more consuming of food. Maybe it's starting a garden for someone else, doing it with them, gardening together. There are a lot of time banks that do community events and opportunities, and so there's opportunity for that, you know, where you get together, and that's, you know, down here as well. Many organizations are constantly struggling to get people to help and show up and do garden parties or help on the farm and do things like that. So if you're offering people time credits for that, you know, how much more are people going to show up and going to be involved in that, and especially they're rooted, and that means, you know, all these people are going to show up when they need help gardening. And also it's building skills as well, and, you know, of course also, you know, this is all local economy when we're talking about doing this on a neighborhood scale and level. And you know, there's a lot of folks here too who are trying to forge careers in certain green industries or in farming and things like that, which is really difficult, as, you know, at least at this moment where, you know, we're just in this transition space. And so this could be a tool that will give people experience, and like you said, as a bike riding, you start out where you're learning it and then you can pass it along to someone else. And so, and you're not, you know, it's not like you have to go to school for a long time for that, or, you know, it may be something that you just want to explore a little bit, or it allows you to do it as a part-time hobby. And, you know, also like the woman who was volunteering with the time bank and then found out upon a career. There's also been other stories in time banks where people who are offering a service through the time bank and through a couple hours will get people and build up this customer base that they get hooked, and then they start paying for these kinds of things. So, you know, if it's something that you want to start doing as a business, this can be a tool to also bring people in that sense as well. And then, you know, you think about food and farming, and especially farm workers or people who are trying to do this as a living, and other jobs as well, in sectors that are very low paid. This is something that may supplement a low paying industry. If you have skills that aren't really highly valued in our market economy, it's a way where you could all of a sudden, instead of being paid $8 for that hour of work that you did, you can trade that for an hour of health care. And, you know, that's a very serious improvement in terms of, you know, equaling that imbalance that, you know, the market provides. And so, let's see, since I may just kind of skip through this a little bit so we have some time for discussions a little bit, but there's plenty of these time banks existing around where, you know, they've had a lot of successes through things, and so some have even bloomed, like the Weatherization Co-op. You know, that was something where they had this offshoot of a business that they supported, and now is this whole training program for people to do weatherization, solar installations, and things like that. You know, the True North Clinic that's in Portland, and it's excellent. I mean, so many people who don't have insurance or unemployed or low income, and imagine, you know, being able to have that within easy reach and without going into debt and things like that. So we can skip along. And so, yeah, this last little piece, so definitely looking to start one of these up in San Diego. And, you know, with the Time Bank, it's really nice because there's not really a whole lot that you need to start it up. You know, you need a small core, and it's very little, like, running overhead or anything like that. And so, you know, you need help. You need some people who are interested. So, you know, you can sign up afterwards or talk to me, or, you know, if you are really inspired after this and want to get involved and want to help promote it. But, you know, these are the basic areas that you kind of need to start out and push it forward, and then, you know, just it kind of grows on its own and gets out there. Yeah, and then so that's basically it. So that's a special email I have set up for it. If you have questions or comments or want to contact me. And then if you want a copy of the PowerPoint, you know, you can just leave your name and email, and I'll be sure to email it out to you. And yeah, I guess we could just open it up to discussions if people have questions or other concerns.
You talked about the community garden and how to get people involved, to give them you're giving them something back for their community involvement. So this concept of Time Bank, and, you know, let's say combining this with something like Volunteer San Diego, that's the sort of idea. Are there any instances where, I mean, it seems that it could work very well in theory, are there any instances around the world where something like that has happened and is, you know, up from 200 volunteers a month, that's shot up to 200, 300, 400 volunteers a month?
The what?
In Argentina, which is the whole nation, basically.
Yeah, you're familiar with the Argentina example. I'm not familiar with, like, specific statistics on that. You know, in the ones that I've somewhat been involved with in the Metro Detroit area, certainly there are organizations where they've had increases in volunteers. I can't tell you by how many, but yeah, it's...
I'm sorry, I'm an engineer, so that's...
Good, you can be our tracker. But yeah, it's certainly, like, there's certainly a huge incentive and promise for organizations that, you know, across the board, you know, you're an arts organization, you're this, everyone's looking for involvement, they're looking for people, and not only that, but there are examples of, you know, it's a way to keep people tied in and build this positive movement too, to where, you know, you go volunteer somewhere sometimes, you know, you kind of did your hours, you're done, right? But if you go in there and you're giving an hour and then you get something back, you're still roped into that same thing, and so it keeps revolving, and then you stay in touch, and it's everyone has a lot of cultures. There exists this thing where we want to give, but we don't want to accept anything. You know, we want to be this, you know, person that is giving and helping, but it's a little bit harder to receive. And I think, you know, the time banks make that much more socially acceptable to also receive and know that, hey, this is standard, you know, and so it allows us to not have so much pride around that and loop in a little bit and have the long-term engagement of volunteers. So maybe that's something too that would be worth tracking as well.